Well, Hsing-ay, you have a program coming right up called
Mhm.
Connecting Music, Others, and Ourselves, Conscious Listening. Maybe you should tell us a little bit about what the four steps are, or would it be better that we
Sure.
just come to your gathering?
Well, no, I love to get the word out because actually, I really believe that conscious listening to music helps us to live more conscious lives. I'm at Chautauqua right now. I'm teaching a class called Classical Music Lab for adults here, where we're folding in improv and things like that. And this morning's lecture by Chris Hayes was on his new book, The Sirens. And he's talking about the that attention is the resource that is most lacking and most definitive in terms of how we think about our age, our era, and the idea that we can voluntarily focus on something and have conscious living. I think that's really important for us right now because it is so threatened by all the disruptions on our phone and online and in the news and all that. So, the idea of conscious living, going back to conscious listening, I like to approach it in four steps. The first step is just to describe, just to notice and be mindful of what's happening in the music, whether it's loud or soft. The surface layer. And then within that, sometimes you can right away tell what the emotional intent is as well. And what I'm interested in is making the connection between the physical description, the physical features, and the emotional impact. Then the second layer is hard. The second layer is to focus on one musical element over a span of time. And sometimes in our classes, in our smaller workshops, we would actually do a slow walk, a procession around the room to really feel the sense of pulse and continuous flow of music. I think most people have a hard time staying focused for an entire piece of music. And this is where we're practicing together how to follow, let's say, the melody and just stay in tune with the melody. Or maybe the next time we just focus on the harmonic tension and release. The third step is to respond to the music in a personal way. And this is leaving room for everyone to create their own personal meaning. And everyone's life experiences are so diverse, but we all have the ability to creatively associate maybe a certain feeling with maybe a childhood place or a certain friendship or something very specific to each individual. And then the last step is to breathe. And it's interesting, there's a lot of literature out there about breathing. I think the Eastern approach is much more holistic and that it's part of life, it's part of your life force. Whereas the Western idea of breath is more specific component of the respiratory system. And I think for me, breathing to music is the most natural thing to do. And it's like a shortcut to mindfulness. Instead of, sitting in silence and trying to focus on being mindful. If I listen to a music, suddenly I'm super aware because it's so interesting to hear these sounds, especially the relationship between the notes in these chords in the music. It just makes me automatically so much more mindful and focused, depending on which way I'm trying to listen.
Your husband is a very significant composer, and I've loved many of the pieces of his that I've heard so far.
Thank you.
And you two being married and being together, having known each other all the way back to your high school years,
Mhm.
I have to ask if his music has been influenced by you with a deeper sense of spiritual awareness or a deeper sense of how the music breathes that he's composing or anything like that.
Dan, so my husband is Dan Kellogg, and Thanks for bringing that up. We do influence each other, I think maybe more as editors, if you will. Like we will bounce things off of each other and then we'll talk about maybe the most effective way to make an intent clear to the audience. And there are times that we've, discussed different voicings in a chord or placements of notes. But I will say, in terms of how Dan has influenced me, especially in the beginning of our relationship where I did not yet really know any other living composers, he was really the first composer that I saw go through the creative process and actually work with all these decisions that one has to make so many decisions for each phrase. And seeing that really lit up something in me and the curiosity, I think, for how do you create something that has deep meaning. So I hope that I've been helpful in clarifying some of his music, but we have definitely been on this long journey together as musical collaborators for a long time.